Welcome to NTD News. I'm Kevin Hogan. Here are today's top stories. The top House Republican says members are worried about Representative Liz Cheney's work as conference chair. Are her days in the House leadership numbered? Derek Chauvin's attorney asks for a new trial. He says Chauvin's trial was not fair and it violated his constitutional rights. A city in West Texas outlaws abortion, and we hear from an organizer who helped enact the ban. But how is this possible given that all 7 city council members are pro-abortion? More strong thunderstorms strike the southern U.S. The storms spawned tornadoes and flooded streets from Mississippi to Maryland. And a federal judge grants a nonprofit's request. It forces the Justice Department to release a memo on former President Trump. Facebook's oversight board decides to uphold the decision to ban former President Donald Trump from the platform. The board says Trump's post during the Capitol breach led them to their decision. A board statement says Trump's post during the January 6 Capitol breach encouraged and legitimized violence. That's referring to the post where Trump said his supporters are very special. But the oversight board also found that Facebook's indefinite suspension violates the rules. Facebook needs to give a specific time frame or announce a permanent suspension within 6 months. The founder of the Internet Accountability Project said that Facebook acts as prosecutor, defender, judge, jury, appellate court, and executioner, and that no one company should have the power to block a president from communicating with the American people. 5 members of the board reviewed the case. Their decision needed to be signed off by a majority of the board. Twitter also says they will continue to keep Trump off the platform. The company told Yahoo that they have no oversight board like Facebook, so management makes all the final decisions themselves. Former President Trump responded, saying free speech has been taken away from the president because what he called the radical left is afraid of the truth. But he added that the truth will come out bigger and stronger than ever before. A shakeup in House Republican leadership might be coming soon. The top Republican says members are concerned about Liz Cheney's ability to continue in her leadership position. NTD's Jessica Beatty has the details.
House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy signaled on Fox Tuesday that members are losing confidence in Liz Cheney's ability to lead.
I have heard from members concerned about her ability to carry out the job as conference chair, to carry out the message. We all need to be working as one if we're able to win the majority.
He said members are less concerned about her vote to impeach former President Trump and more concerned about her ability to unite the party. Cheney's spokesperson responded, saying, "This is about whether the Republican Party is going to perpetuate lies about the 2020 election and attempt to whitewash what happened on January 6th. Members are expected to try to remove the House Republican Conference Chair from party leadership soon. Potential replacements include Elise Stefanik of New York and Jackie Walorski from Indiana. Cheney's also playing defense in Wyoming. She already has 4 Republican primary opponents for next year's election." Trump himself weighed in on new polls Monday, saying she's so low that her only chance would be if vast numbers of people run against her, which hopefully won't happen. "I say she'll never run in a Wyoming election again." Cheney still has allies in Congress, including Illinois Representative Kinzinger and Mitt Romney from Utah. The vote to remove Cheney could come as soon as next Wednesday, their next scheduled meeting after a 2-week break. Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
Number 2 House Republican Steve Scalise supports replacing Cheney with Elise Stefanik. His spokesperson told the Epoch Times today that Republicans need to focus on taking back the House, and Stefanik is strongly committed to doing that. The House Minority Leader criticizes the MLB's decision to pull its All-Star game out of Atlanta. He and a U.S. representative from Georgia visited a diner near the city to talk to small businesses after the decision. We also hear what business owners in the area have to say about it. Take a look.
House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy visited Marietta, Georgia on Tuesday to talk to small businesses. While there, he renewed his party's criticism of Major League Baseball for pulling its All-Star game out of Atlanta.
I wish Major League Baseball would learn the lesson from this, to not make a rash decision, to make informed decisions, to read the bills before they make judgment. This movement in this country about wokeness has got to stop. We can disagree on things, but let's base it upon facts.
A U.S. representative from Georgia voiced his concern over the MLB pulling its All-Star game from the Atlanta Braves Stadium.
31 days ago, we stood on the steps of the Georgia Capitol with Governor Kemp, Attorney General Chris Carr, state legislatures to decry the very dishonest, disingenuous statements of many corporate CEOs and to call out the impact that Major League Baseball's decision to leave Georgia for another state would have on our small business community.
The MLB faced backlash over its decision to boycott Georgia after the state passed an election reform law. The owner of this diner is still optimistic despite the economic blow the MLB's move will have on businesses in the area.
It's not the end of the world. Like I said, we're gonna move on. We've been through worse, but it's just a little bit hard, hurts a little bit because it was going to be a fun week.
Another business owner just northwest of Atlanta describes the effect of the MLB's decision.
I knew that the company here at the Juicy Crab in Smyrna is definitely going to affect it because we usually get different people from all over Atlanta coming here. So as soon as the baseball game was over, they automatically came here. They know about the Juicy Crab. So we definitely lost like a pretty good amount of business here because of that reason. So it was pretty bad.
Moving the All-Star Game is estimated to cost Georgia's economy about $100 million. Now the Colorado Rockies will host the All-Star Game on July 13th in Denver.
The defense attorney for former police officer Derek Chauvin is asking for a new trial on multiple grounds, including jury misconduct. Chauvin was convicted of murder in April. NTD's Christina Kim has that story.
Attorney Eric Nelson filed a request to a Minnesota court Tuesday, arguing that Chauvin should be granted a new trial. The former officer was found guilty of second-degree and third-degree murder, as well as second-degree manslaughter for the death of George Floyd. Nelson argues Chauvin was not granted a fair trial, and this violated his constitutional rights. He says the conviction was tainted by misconduct from the prosecution and the jury, that there were errors of law at trial, and that the verdict was contrary to law. He alleges a number of issues impacted the outcome of the trial. For example, the court refused to move the trial out of Minnesota, where Floyd died, even though Nelson argued concerns of a tainted jury pool. He also mentions the jury was not isolated during the trial, and they were exposed to the extreme publicity surrounding the case. There was a lot of media attention surrounding the trial. Notably, Representative Maxine Waters flew to Minnesota to participate in a protest where she urged people to get more confrontational. But juror number 52, Brandon Mitchell, has since done public interviews and claims the jury didn't know anything about that. Nelson says the verdict should be impeached because the jury committed misconduct, felt threatened or intimidated, felt race-based pressure, and or failed to follow the instructions during deliberations. The request comes days after prosecutors filed a legal brief arguing that Chauvin should be given a higher sentence due to a series of what they say are aggravating factors. Under Minnesota law, Chauvin faces a maximum of 40 years in prison. Christina Kim, NTD News.
U.S. representatives discussed proposals for lowering drug prices. House Democrats reintroduced a controversial bill, but those skeptical of the bill say it would restrict access to certain medications. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has the story.
Congress is in the midst of negotiating a law to lower drug prices, a problem lawmakers have been trying to rectify for years.
I just don't believe that any American should have to choose between paying for the prescription drugs they need to stay healthy and other basic necessities like food and rent.
But some say the issue has become too politicized and used as a tool to get votes rather than rationally trying to solve it.
It's just so easy to get, cheap votes by playing a very populist red meat game with these things when it has absolutely no understanding of how the economic realities of this business works. That's what's really concerning to me.
And House Democrats have reintroduced H.R. 3, which is a controversial bill aiming to lower drug prices through government mandates, but it does come with sacrifices.
But newer drugs will simply not be invested in. Again, I don't dispute your earlier comments that it would immediately lower drug prices. Of course, by law, it's making their drug prices lower. The concerns we have are, of course, with innovation.
And we're going to look at Europe, which often, puts in pricing restrictions and artificial barriers to access, and often embargoes certain drugs or puts things in, limits access to those drugs in order to.
One reason U.S. drug prices are so much higher than other countries is because U.S. dominates in research and development, and that is costly. Critics of H.R. 3 say this bill would forfeit this global dominance.
And when you start reducing revenues by this large of an amount, you essentially get rid of entire portfolios, entire research lines, neurological disorders, Alzheimer's disease, rare cancers, orphan drugs that will just go away.
Another reason common drugs like insulin are so high, according to research from consultancy Vital Transformation, is the big profit gobbled up by middlemen.
What we found was 50% of the revenue was literally missing in a lot of the insulin companies. And the only place that revenue can be going is the pharmaceutical benefit manager.
To dissect the problem at its root, Schultes suggests monopolies should be broken down and policymakers should look for ways to accelerate drug development so it takes less time and is less costly. Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
This weekend, the residents of Lubbock, Texas banned abortions, making it a sanctuary city for the unborn. Earlier, I spoke with Jim Baxa, the president of West Texas for Life, on how and why this happened.
Yeah, it was a referendum. First, we went to our city council, and in a very conservative city like Lubbock, you would think our city council would represent us well, but they did not. In fact, our city council is all 7 members are pro-abortion, and so they were not interested in passing the ordinance that we wanted them to pass to ban abortion in Lubbock. So we were forced at that point to go to the referendum aspect, and we had 60 days to gather 3,651 signatures on a certified paperwork, and in 18 days, the churches of Lubbock, Texas, rose up and gathered double that number of signatures. They had 7,000 signatures to force a May 1st election.
Now, Jim, why is it so important to you that this measure banning abortion be passed?
Well, we want to save babies' lives. And that came to a head because Planned Parenthood announced last year that they were going to come into Lubbock and start killing babies. And that's exactly what they did 2 weeks ago. They started killing babies here in our city. And we said, we're not going to allow that. We are not going to allow babies to die on our watch.
Well, now, Jim, critics say the abortion ban is unconstitutional given the Supreme Court's ruling in Roe v. Wade. What's your reaction to this?
Yeah, my reaction is first off that Roe v. Wade is what is unconstitutional. Roe v. Wade was made by a tyrant court who has no authority to deal with abortion, deal with health care, to deal with anything like that. And they made an erroneous ruling. And first off, states should be pushing back against that erroneous ruling and nullifying it. And second, the Roe v. Wade opinion only dealt with a state-level ruling. So they're saying that a state can't completely ban abortion. It doesn't say anything about a city not being able to ban abortion. And if somebody wants to travel outside the city limits of Lubbock to a nearby suburb or a nearby town, they have that ability still under this ordinance. But what they can't do is kill a baby in the city limits of Lubbock, Texas.
5 people face charges after authorities uncovered a Texas house that held almost 100 illegal migrants. The leaders of the alleged smuggling ring are all living in the U.S. illegally. The alleged smugglers range in age from 21 to 31. Houston police discovered the people locked in a smuggling stash house after a call from a distressed woman. CBS reports that the woman said she already paid the smugglers thousands of dollars to get her brother into the U.S., but the smugglers demanded more money and threatened to kill her brother. Police then found 97 migrants in 2 separate rooms of a 2-story house. 5 were women, and there were no children found. They were wearing only their underwear. Police say 5 of the migrants tested positive for COVID-19. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has scheduled a special election to fill a vacant U.S. House seat. But the timing he chose is likely to irritate Democrats. The seat was vacated after Democratic Congressman Alcee Hastings passed away. He represented his Florida district for almost 30 years. He died from pancreatic cancer last month. DeSantis announced a primary for November 2nd and an election for January 11th. One of the Democratic candidates called for an August primary and a November election, but DeSantis said he wants to give all candidates enough time to run their election campaigns. Hastings' district is considered safe territory for Democrats. At the same time, they hold a razor-thin majority in the House. That means that the election will leave them without a potentially crucial vote for another 8 months. The Kansas governor recently vetoed 2 election bills, but the Republican-controlled legislature just overrode the veto. Now they've passed the bills. Advocates for this say this will help fair and transparent elections, and critics call it voter suppression. Under the bills, the Secretary of State is not allowed to extend the deadline for receiving advanced mail-in ballots. This also requires election officers to verify the signatures on absentee ballots before accepting them. This doesn't apply to voters who have disabilities. And it's now a misdemeanor for one person to collect and return more than 10 ballots. Republican lawmakers say they're preventing fraud and making the election process more transparent. Senate Minority Leader Dinah Sykes says the legislature is more extreme than ever. Strong storms swept across the southern U.S. Tuesday for a third day in a row, bringing tornadoes and floods and leaving hundreds of thousands of weather-weary residents without power.
Powerful thunderstorms wreaked havoc from Texas to Maryland Tuesday. At least 5 people are confirmed dead, and dozens of injuries are reported from the severe weather this week. Almost 250,000 people are left without power. Flooding rains struck Birmingham, Alabama. Downtown streets turned into gushing waterways. Fire department personnel needed boats to rescue stranded residents from the floodwaters. Officials are urging residents to stay off the flooded streets. The storm flipped a tractor trailer on a Texas interstate, injuring 8. A woman was killed when a large tree landed on her home in Tennessee. A falling tree also killed a man in his car in Georgia. 2 people died in tornadoes in Mississippi, where 12 tornadoes struck Sunday. Streets are littered with storm debris in Mississippi's capital, Jackson. Tornadoes also touched down in Kentucky, South Carolina, and Virginia on Monday. Reports of tornadoes are still being investigated from Tuesday's storms. Crews are cleaning up debris and working to restore power across the region. Damage assessment is still ongoing. Some schools canceled classes or moved them online due to damage on campuses, and debris strewn across roads. More severe weather is expected again in the region Wednesday. The threat is expected to move south and east toward the Gulf Coast.
A federal judge orders the Justice Department to release a memo it sought to keep private. The memo includes legal advice given to Attorney General William Barr about former President Donald Trump.
U.S. District Judge Amy Berman Jackson has ruled that a disputed legal memo must be released. The memo is from the Trump-era Justice Department. It provided legal advice to the former Attorney General William Barr about whether or not to pursue obstruction of justice charges against Trump. A group called Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington sought the memo as part of a Freedom of Information Act request. The Justice Department withheld the memo, arguing that it contained private advice from lawyers to the Attorney General. The judge denied that. She says there was already an understanding that charges wouldn't be filed when the memo was written. She says the memo was about strategy. The Freedom of Information Act request came after the release of the Mueller investigation. Barr testified in Congress that he read Mueller's report and got legal consult about pursuing obstruction of justice charges. Barr says there was not enough evidence to pursue the charges. Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington then requested to see the legal advice Barr used to make that decision. Judge Jackson was appointed by former President Barack Obama. She gave the Department of Justice until May 17th to release the document.
St. Louis Circuit Attorney Kim Gardner is facing disciplinary proceedings stemming from an ethics complaint filed against her. Gardner was elected to the post with the help of billionaire liberal activist George Soros. It's unclear which allegations the disciplinary proceedings will address, but a statement by Gardner's office provided to KMOV referenced the allegations against her lodged by former Missouri Governor Eric Greitens. Gardner investigated Greitens, who resigned from the governorship during the probe, but all charges against him were later dropped. Greitens' team has accused Gardner of failing to correct the record during a deposition from a private investigator hired by Gardner. Mexico's president is promising justice for those responsible for a recent train collapse. The accident killed 24 people on Tuesday. He says there won't be impunity for anyone. The collapsed train line is less than 10 years old. It's been plagued by allegations of structural weakness ever since its opening. Residents in the area say you could see the supports shaking anytime a train passed overhead. The collapse has sparked further questions about the safety of the city's metro lines, which are among the busiest in the world. The attorneys general offices for both Mexico and Mexico City will investigate. A group from Norway is being brought in to provide an external auditor. Mexico's president says the investigations should be conducted quickly and that nothing will be hidden from the public. Coming up, a Pentagon watchdog plans to release a report that shows how different agencies dealt with UFO sightings and other unexplained phenomena. In the nation's capital, a Memorial Day weekend motorcycle rally is denied a permit. Traditionally, the bike parade honors fallen veterans, but this year they may need special accommodation. All that and more on NTD News. The Pentagon's Inspector General is evaluating how the Pentagon has responded to unidentified aerial phenomena. That's including unidentified flying objects, or UFOs. In a newly released memo, the Watchdog says it plans to begin the probe next month. The Pentagon's Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force is scheduled to release a report on its findings in June. That was triggered by the passing of the December 2020 stimulus bill. The Senate Intelligence Committee says the report should include detailed analysis of unidentified phenomena, data collected by various intelligence methods. Former Director of National Intelligence John Ratcliffe told Fox News earlier that the report would reveal sightings that hadn't been made public. New York City police is investigating a hammer attack on 2 women. One woman suffered injuries while trying to defend herself. NTD's Arian Pastar has the story.
31-year-old Teresa came from Taiwan to New York City in 2019 to study here at the Fashion Institute of Technology in Midtown Manhattan. Now on Sunday night, she and her friend went to a subway station in Hell's Kitchen. ABC News reported they went together because they felt there was the safer option, and that choice turned out to be the right one. The New York City Police Department released a surveillance video of the incident. The suspected attacker approached the women on the sidewalk and demanded they remove their masks. When Teresa and her friend refused, the woman struck them with a hammer. Teresa suffered a deep cut to the head and was taken to the hospital to get stitches. The other woman didn't appear to have any injuries. One of the women swung a wine bottle at the attacker in defense. At one point, the attacker dropped the hammer and Teresa picked it up. She told ABC the attacker was talking to herself and it seemed she was drunk. Teresa and her friend tried to pass by quickly, but before they knew it, the woman was attacking them. Teresa reportedly stopped defending herself when she realized that she was bleeding heavily from her head. After the attacker took off, people nearby rushed to the victim and helped her. Teresa and her mother decided that it's safer for her to go back to Taiwan for now, but she says she might come back to the States if she finds a good job here. Arian Pastar, NTD News, New York.
Hundreds of police officers left the Washington, D.C. Police Department in the last 11 months. The D.C. Police Union says the police reform bill needs to be changed to prevent losing more officers. Since June of 2020, the D.C. Police Department has lost 326 police officers. About half resigned and the rest retired. But homicides in the district are up 36% this year. The D.C. Police Union said in a statement Monday that the police reform bill has a negative impact. After George Floyd's death, the D.C. Council unanimously passed the emergency bill last June. The bill prohibits police from using tear gas, pepper spray, or rubber bullets to respond to protests. Under the bill, officers are required to release their body cam footage within 72 hours of an incident, and people with police misconduct cannot be hired. The D.C. Police Union criticizes this bill for putting officers in danger and making their jobs harder. There are 3,623 members remaining in the district's police department. An annual motorcycle ride honoring fallen and missing war heroes has been denied a key permit for the event. The ride, set for May 30th over Memorial Day weekend, has organizers looking for alternatives. NTD's Steve Lance has more from Washington, D.C.
For the past 30 years, veterans have been gathering for an annual motorcycle ride through Washington, D.C. over Memorial Day weekend to remember the fallen soldiers killed or missing in battle. But this year's ride, Rolling to Remember, hosted by AMVETS, might not happen. Of all government agencies that have to sign off on the permits, the least likely of all has denied a permit for the group, the Pentagon. This particular permit would be used for the staging and meeting point for the event. The Pentagon told Joe Cheney, the National Executive Director of AMVETS, that it was because of the CCP virus that they would not issue them the permit. But Cheney says his organization has put in the safety measures needed to safely carry out the event.
This year we've spent months on developing a safety plan. We feel that it's very confident that we're able to have a demonstration outdoors.
He says that being outdoors and the nature of motorcycles and size provides plenty of distancing.
Really all we are looking to do at this point this year is to ride motorcycles around the National Mall, past our National War Memorials, past the White House and the Capitol building, and just be heard on Memorial Day weekend in our nation's capital. The average motorcycle is 8 feet long, so the social distancing is built in there. We have other plans that we had proposed.
According to Cheney, they have received conditional approval from 9 out of 10 agencies needed to complete the event, with the Pentagon being the only one to have denied them. However, the Pentagon is key as it will allow them to properly and safely set up for the event.
But of those 10 agencies that we would initially work with on a year-to-year basis, the Pentagon is the only one who has told us that we were not able to demonstrate on their property.
Cheney told us that they are still focused on moving forward with the event and that they are working with other agencies to try and accommodate them. Steve Lance, NTD News, Washington.
And still to come, we'll look at a restaurant owner who says business is going well, but workers are hard to find. She says she's not alone. And pet adoptions are soaring even as lockdowns begin to ease. One no-kill shelter in New York is finding loving homes for its rescue animals. Stay tuned to find out more.
We're becoming more and more urban. We lose our connection with nature. This little girl lives in a world of natural beauty, nature all around her. Not everybody has this opportunity. Things are growing all around her, all sort of handmade things. The artist has portrayed a scene that is so comforting and so grounded that we can experience this ourselves. The artist himself has to be absolutely natural. And it's not easy to do because children are hard to paint. Birds are hard to paint. They don't sit still. This is quite an accomplishment, reflecting nature back to us. It's just a pure, natural painting.
Put the keys down, Kevin.
But I'm gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
My text to emoji ratio has gotten a little out of hand.
A little?
Yep, I'm definitely gonna call a ride home.
I felt accomplished after I got my diploma. Made me feel that I could take on whatever challenges life throws at you.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Small businesses across America have dealt with CCP virus lockdowns in various ways, but government involvement may have brought new difficulties. A restaurant owner in Chicago told NTD what she is doing to keep her business going.
As lockdowns ease and business starts returning to normal, new employees should be showing up with resumes in hand. But that's not the case so far, according to the owner of the Soul Shack, Keisha Rucker.
Yes. So this is the funny part is now we're currently short-staffed. So I literally had people in here multitasking. I was in here cashiering. My daughter's in here cashiering. I actually had to hire my daughter to come in and be one of the cashiers because I can't find staff.
Rucker is not alone. She says that she sees hiring signs all over the city.
I spoke to a couple other business owners, and I think a lot of people are still getting unemployment, and the unemployment is probably higher than what they're getting at the restaurant, in the restaurant industry.
One of Rucker's longtime chefs shares her view.
Right now with the stimulus checks and everybody being able to receive unemployment, a lot of people would rather not work. Some people, it could be a safety risk. Some people just prefer to collect unemployment.
No one really wants to work. Like everyone, I feel like COVID has crippled a lot of people, so everyone is expecting everything to be done for them, like, you know, the government sending out the stimulus packages and, you know, extended unemployment. Everyone is crippled. You know, I can't depend on that, like, because at the end of the day they can stop it at any moment, and then you're just looking up like, oh, you know, what am I supposed to do now?
I believe a lot of people are really just staying at home. It's comfortable. I personally don't understand how. I have to work. I have bills to pay. So, of course, I'm trying to work and keep the doors open.
She does it not just for money, but for love.
This is my baby. This is like my child. I actually do have children. I have 3 daughters. But this is my child because I had a vision. I put the vision into play, and I watch it flourish.
Rucker has run her restaurant since 2019 and plans to keep it open much longer.
A Georgia's woman was arrested at Atlanta's airport on Sunday for trying to smuggle drugs in her shoes. U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers pulled the 21-year-old for further inspection after she arrived on a flight from Jamaica. When officers closely examined her belongings, they found 3 pounds of a white powder substance hidden in the bottom of 7 pairs of the woman's shoes. The powder turned out to be cocaine, $40,000 worth. The woman was handed over to police for prosecution. A boost in pet adoptions is still going strong. It started out last year as the lockdown-weary sought stress relief and companionship. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the story.
Even as lockdowns begin to ease, stressed-out families are still looking for furry companions. Adoption rates at animal shelters jumped as much as 40% in 2020 from the previous year. Many sought new animal companions to help cope with isolation at the height of the pandemic. Leslie Granger is the president and chief executive of Vetoes. The New York nonprofit has been finding loving homes for rescued animals since 1903.
We've had an incredible demand for people who want to foster and to adopt for the past year. And we're not seeing it slow down. People are still coming in.
At Vetoes' 10,000 square foot building in Manhattan, about 40 pets are up for adoption. 8-week-old puppies frolic, and a kitten bottle feeds inside the shelter.
The one good thing is if you're having a bad moment at work, you can always take a little time out and get some puppy smooches or kitten cuddles.
Vetoes' no-kill policy sets it apart from shelters that put animals down if they are not adopted. But even as people open their homes to pets, some pandemic-stressed pet owners have abandoned unwanted animals on the streets.
We ask that everybody, even though you might fall in love with the looks of one online, we want to make sure that that puppy or kitten or dog or cat is right for your lifestyle.
Female cats can have 5 litters a year, leading to a boom in the stray cat population. So Vetoes teaches cat lovers how to trap and neuter feral cats. Enrollment has soared as the courses have moved online. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Just ahead, the Pentagon chief says the U.S. needs a new vision for defense. That's because cyber and space threats from Beijing will make the future warfare different. And a new report says Chinese coastal regions may be at higher risk of natural disasters. That's due to rising sea levels in recent years. That and more on NTD News. Texas state senators unanimously passed a resolution condemning Communist China's practice of forced organ harvesting. A transplant specialist from a Texas clinic explains why this resolution is necessary. NTD's Allison Lee has the story.
We need to get this out there. We need to stop this practice.
Texas Dr. Howard Mansour is one of the witnesses who testified before state senators about forced organ harvesting in China. 10 years ago, he had a patient who had liver cancer, but multiple transplant centers in Texas turned him down because his chance of survival was too low. The patient then went to China, saying he has some connections there.
At that time, I had no idea what was going on in China and how these organs were being harvested, and neither did he. At least he didn't express any idea that this was going on. He just wanted to live. He ended up going over and getting the transplant.
Since then, Mansour learned about the Chinese Communist regime's practice of forcibly extracting organs from living prisoners of conscience. He now says he would have warned the patient about it had he known about it back then.
Here in the United States, we have to wait a long time in order to get a liver. He got his liver relatively quickly compared to what would happen around the world.
The patient came back to the U.S. but still died of cancer 8 months later. He says he believes desperation drove that patient to unknowingly be part of the horrific practice.
We all like to think we're moral individuals, but when we're faced with death, we'll try anything, and we really have to protect our people from going over and doing this, and we really have to punish the people that are participating in this.
The doctor explains, while organ donors are traceable in the U.S., in China the authorities don't reveal the patients where those organs come from. But many around the world still visit China for organ transplants because the wait time is significantly shorter there compared to the rest of the world. Since testifying to the Texas legislature, Mansour has talked to many fellow Americans and many in the science community about forced organ harvesting.
I'll sit down and tell people what's going on in China. The look on people's eyes. People can't believe it. People can't believe it. That's going to be the challenge, to get people to believe this, because it sounds so horrific.
In 2019, an independent international tribunal concluded that forced organ harvesting has been taking place in China for years and on a significant scale. Reports of the disturbing practice first emerged in 2006. Prisoners of conscience, including political prisoners, Uyghurs, and adherents of the spiritual practice Falun Dafa, are believed to be the primary source of organs. Mansour says we need to raise awareness about it, not only because it's immoral, but also because Americans must understand the mindset behind a regime that would do such a thing.
That says more than just the fact of transplant. That says what this government really is that would do something like this. And that is, to me, having an understanding of what they are, there's obviously no morals there.
Mansour believes the Chinese regime's immorality is also a threat to Americans. He hopes the resolution can encourage medical professionals to warn their patients about forced organ harvesting in China. That way, they can both protect Texans from unknowingly partaking in such a practice and help curb the practice, he says. Allison Lee, NTD News.
The U.S. Defense Secretary predicts that in the near future, warfare will be different from what we are familiar with. He says the U.S. needs to keep its technological edge. NTD's Tiffany Meyer brings us more on the story.
The U.S. Defense Secretary is calling for a new vision for American defense in his first major speech. Last Friday, Pentagon Chief Lloyd Austin depicted a new vision in the face of emerging cyber and space threats from Beijing and the prospect of bigger conflicts. He calls on the current administration to use technological advances to address these threats. He specifically mentions quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and edge computing. That's a method that speeds up response time by processing and sharing data as they are collected. Facing China's accelerating military modernization, Austin warns that the U.S. cannot be satisfied with having the world's strongest armed forces. He adds, saying, not at a time when our potential adversaries are very deliberately working to blunt our edge. Four-star General David Berger from the U.S. Marine Corps also stated earlier that the U.S. military needs to upgrade its equipment to deal with Beijing's threat. According to U.S.-based media Breaking Defense, Berger delivered a memo to Austin back in February. And the memo reportedly lists Communist China as the top threat to the U.S. for the first time. The sea level is rising along China's coast. Official reports suggest it may lead to more natural disasters. Chinese authorities report that sea levels along the country's entire coastline are higher than normal. China's Ministry of Natural Resources blamed the change on the land sinking. In 2017, a geological survey showed higher sea levels tend to result in more floods, typhoons, and land loss. They also lead to salty soil, which can cause wetland ecosystems to deteriorate. In 2019, Chinese authorities reported that land areas in over 100 cities were sinking, twice as many as the figures from a few years ago. Major cities affected include Shanghai and Guangzhou. Shanghai is a megacity located at the mouth of China's longest river, the Yangtze River. Because of that, the ground is softer there. The sea level will reach its highest seasonal levels from August to October. The weight of large buildings there, coupled with overuse of groundwater, both contribute to land sinkage. A decade ago, Time magazine reported that Shanghai's urban area had sunk more than 6 feet over the past 90 years. The dramatic shift also poses a threat to locals. U.S.-based research institute Climate Center says rising sea levels could put 93 million Chinese residents at risk by 2050. Last year, disasters like flooding and storm surge caused economic losses totaling $130 million. Zhejiang province was among those hit the hardest. In 2019, a typhoon there led to an economic loss of nearly $6 billion. The region will again enter its high tide period starting in August. Parts of Hong Kong will also be at risk later this year.
Up next, the founder of Spotify makes an offer to buy hotshot English soccer club Arsenal. He gained the support of team legends, but negotiations are likely to drag out. And NTD's
If you're like most of us, you're probably getting fed up with the nonsense that's going on in the banking system. Did you know that top U.S. banks have recently amended their depositor terms and conditions to include the words bank failure and what's required of you in 24 hours if, or should I say when, it happens? Don't get blindsided by your bank. Call GSI Exchange today to pick up your complimentary copy of the Bank Failure Survival Guide at 866-424-2382. We'll also send you the required format to file with your bank within 24 hours of their failure, which is now required by the top banks to avoid freezing of your funds. Yes, the top banks can now freeze your money. The world is in a strange place, and banks are constantly changing the rules. So stay on top of the current events that really matter by calling GSI Exchange and requesting your free guide at 866-424-2382.
It's just clear as day. The media, whether it's broadcast, cable, or print media, has become extremely biased. And I started looking online for alternative ways to get information. And I saw an ad for a free trial. And I looked at it and I said, Epoch Times. I mean, come on, this is end of days type of stuff. I mean, what are they going to be talking about here? And I said, well, it's a free trial. Let me dig in. Is it giving me both sides? Is it giving me an objective point of view here? I have looked for opportunities to see where they might be biased, and I don't find it. It has given me a level of trust in media that I didn't think I'd ever get back. I love the Epoch Times because it has renewed my faith in the idea that a reliable, responsible, non-biased source of information is available. And I can say that I love it because of that.
Spotify's founder is offering to buy the Premier League soccer club Arsenal. But a former Arsenal star says if it happens, it could take quite a while.
Daniel Ek, the founder and CEO of Spotify, made an offer to buy Premier League club Arsenal from its current owners, a takeover bid that is likely to be drawn out. That's according to former Arsenal star Thierry Henry, who said the Swedish billionaire reached out to the Stan Kroenke family to make an offer. Forbes reported that Ek said he had secured the $2.8 billion needed to buy Arsenal, and that team greats Henry, Dennis Bergkamp, and Patrick Vieira backed the bid. In response to Ek's initial interest, Kroenke and his son Josh put out a statement saying they remained 100% committed to Arsenal and were not interested in selling a stake in the club. Henry, meanwhile, told Sky Sports that the family needed to listen to the offer, adding, quote, "A lot of people have been screaming that they want the owner out. We are trying to offer a solution involving the fans and getting the DNA of the club back." Arsenal's among 6 English clubs who signed up for the proposed European Super League project, before withdrawing amid a storm of protests from fans, players, and the British government. The club is 9th in the Premier League standings and in the semifinals of the Europa League.
This spring, new graduates will be vying for their first job out of college. NTD's Phil Zoe looks at the hottest careers for entry-level remote jobs.
Some new graduates who want to work remotely are finding it difficult to land a job.
And it was really tough because there's a lot of jobs out there, but there's also a lot of people applying, so it's hard to kind of make yourself stand out.
But job search website FlexJobs says opportunities are out there, even for remote working.
It is more possible than ever to get a remote job. The shift that we've seen over the last year has really changed how often and available remote work will be going forward.
Entry-level remote jobs are growing in industries like human resources, sales, and call centers.
Don't get disheartened and get out there and find those remote jobs, because they definitely exist more now than ever.
After surveying 400 workers, FlexJobs says at least 1 in 3 have learned a new professional skill during the pandemic.
And I learned a lot more things about this job.
Just find a niche, find something you're really good at, instead of just applying to like 100 jobs and who knows what they are.
Besides teamwork, working independently is also important.
Your ability to focus, your self-management and self-direction skills, staying on task when nobody is looking over your shoulder.
Besides salary and pay, workers had different priorities.
The most important is benefits.
I really look for the quality of life and the sense of community. I don't want to go to work feeling like I'm alone. I want to be treated well,
Accounting, medical, computer, and IT also made it to the list for offering remote entry-level jobs. Phil Zhou, NTD News, New York.
Debates and opinions over energy sources can get heated, but as the demand for coal continues to decline, we often forget about the people who fueled our nation for centuries, coal miners. The coal mining tradition formed a culture in America's Northeast that has been severely affected by the push for renewable energy and policies that have sent American jobs overseas. The future of this culture and its traditions hang in the balance. NTD's Kay Rubachek has the story.
All of the safety regulations and laws that we have are written in their blood.
This does not look like coal that I know.
These cars are the biggest thing that fits in there.
Shiny.
Any leader that doesn't have a regret about something is probably not being honest.
And where's it going?
That's the million-dollar question.
This is almost like the race to the moon.
Don't give up on us yet. Just please don't throw us away.
Coal. We've used it for heat since the time of the caveman, and for centuries its power has fueled this nation. But as we toured the coal fields of America's Northwest, we found that the industry itself created a unique culture among the brave people who dare to walk beneath the earth to power our lives above the ground. Where is this culture now as the demand for coal declines? And more importantly, where is its future?
Because of men like them, I enjoy the safety benefits that I have today. It's a shame to say it, but all of the safety regulations and laws that we have today are written in their blood. My children get to enjoy me coming home every day because they didn't. And there's monuments like this all over the place, and I think the same about them every time.
Anthracite is the purest thing you can get in a solid fuel. Drill, blast, load. There's a lot more to it than that, but that's the basic minimum.
And is that different to bituminous?
Bituminous mining used to be the same process. They've moved beyond drill, blast, load.
Okay.
Now it's just go and grind it out and just keep going. It's constant. They were able to modernize versus where here in the anthracite region, it was deemed too expensive. The machines couldn't handle the pitch of the veins, so it didn't really work out.
I'll show you my favorite picture of me right here. So I'm like staring directly in the eyes of the cop. I don't know how many times I got arrested here, but I've lost count.
You've worn the hard hat and you also worn the suit. How does it affect you personally, understanding both sides?
I'm a coal miner first. My father was a coal miner. Both my grandfathers were killed in the mines. I never had the chance to meet them. My family made their way here from Wales. They were miners before they came here.
They were miners in Wales?
Oh, yes. Once you're a coal miner, every ounce of you is driven by what you know about mining coal.
Tune in to Life and Times every week on NTD Television.
The full Life in Times episode broadcasts every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time on NTD Television and is available to watch online, on demand, and on Epoch TV. Parisians say they're longing for fine dining after a year of pandemic restrictions, so chefs in Paris are now bringing the experience directly to people's homes. Find out more in just a minute. While he was conquering Europe, Napoleon Bonaparte thought about how to make Paris a new Rome and restore the glorious art of antiquity in Europe. As the anniversary of the French emperor's death approaches, we learn more about his legacy. NTD's David Vetoes has the story.
The Château de Malmaison was Napoleon's private country residence. The emperor used to pause between battles within these walls, where his first wife Josephine waited for him. The chateau's interiors showcases a grand display of what is called the art of the First Empire.
We are in the room of Josephine, an oval room with 16 columns, mirrors facing each other to give more light and depth, and a golden wooded bed with golden swans. The Empress Josephine thought swans were a symbol of happiness and majesty.
Art of the Empire style, just as Renaissance art, is inspired by antiquity. It is marked by the use of Greek columns, marble stone, and sculptures of divinities.
The decoration is about giving an antique atmosphere, with sculptures and carved stone paving the floor.
The angels and god statues were also a reference to the emperor, like in New Julius Caesar. The art also served as propaganda, like this majestic painting showing Napoleon crossing the Alps in 1799.
See the calm look on his face, riding a fiery horse? It makes him look like a hero of antiquity, pointing the finger toward heaven as he was going to meet his fate.
According to historians, the story of Napoleon is one of a headlong rush for expansion. Though his conquests extended the border of his kingdom, in less than 20 years, it shrunk back to its original size after the emperor's abdication, as if his vision for an enlarged empire were but a passing dream.
Napoleon's legacy does not stand in his conquests, as the kingdom's borders receded to what it was. It stands with the organization of the state he built. This could be labeled as his masterpiece.
The emperor was said to seek the perfect way to reign over a country and give it stability and prosperity. He re-established the place of religion at the center of society, created the civil code. He also funded the patronage of the arts. The emperor tried to attain the glory of the old Roman Empire.
At that time, he wanted Paris to be the new Rome in Europe. The art he funded was not all for propaganda, as we sometimes think. He really wanted to embellish France with art pieces and also the other countries he conquered.
The commemoration of the 200th anniversary of the emperor's death will begin on Wednesday, May 5th. David Vetoes, NTD News, Paris.
The pandemic has ravaged the world of fine dining, but in Paris, chefs are bringing the experience into people's homes. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the story.
Parisians yearning for fine dining amid restaurant closures have found an alternative: private chefs who make house calls. Chef Fatia El Kadoui brings her ingredients to patrons' homes and uses their equipment to prepare and serve restaurant-quality dishes. She serves between 60 to 80 meals a month and has to turn away up to 30 bookings.
This demand exists because these people, her clients, used to go to restaurants 1-2 times a week or even more. For example, company executives used to organize work dinners or lunches with their clients, and now they have to stay at home and invite their clients there, obviously within the limits of the law.
El Kadoui was booked by Valerie Lacroix to prepare a lunch for her and her mother. Working in Lacroix's kitchen, the chef prepared a foie gras entree, followed by a sea bream ceviche, then a dish of gambas and scallops.
We have a restaurant at home. The dishes were magnificent, very well served. It was a bit of an experience from another time because it's true that amid the pandemic, we obviously want to go out, see our friends and family, and share meals with them, but we can't.
Restaurateurs and chefs around the world have come up with creative ways to keep working through the pandemic, though it's devastated their industry. Some make high-quality meals for delivery, while others offer cooking classes on social media. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
An Ohio amusement park is using a few special guests to test out its new roller coaster. The new Orion Giga coaster is the tallest and fastest roller coaster at Kings Island Amusement Park. The park shared a video of several Bob Ross dolls enjoying the attraction. The toys were taken down a 300-foot drop before racing up and down 7 hills along 5,300 plus feet of track at speeds up to 90 miles an hour. The Kings Island Amusement Park is currently closed, but is set to reopen on May 15th. And that's all for now. Catch us again tonight at 6:30 Eastern. In New York City, I'm Kevin Hogan.
Don't miss out on important news. Our videos are being deleted. So if you don't want to be cut off from honest news, take a moment to sign up for our newsletter at newsletter.ntd.com so you don't lose access to NTD. Go to newsletter.ntd.com to sign up for our evening newsletter.